Do you ever start a musical endeavor that you just can't seem to finish, that you keep rehashing all the time over and over? You swear that you hear this pick scrape at the 52-second mark, but every time you show your wife, she's like, it's fine, I have no idea what you're talking about. You just can't seem to finish any project, no matter how much time and effort you put into it. I have bad news for you. You probably have perfection paralysis. So this is kind of funny, but this is a video on perfection and the need to overcome having to be perfect, and I'm going through it right now. I wrote out an entire script for this video, but I just can't do that. I have to just talk normally what comes to my mind, so I'm gonna have to use this script as a, I don't know, a guide or a reference, but there's no way I can read it just as it is. I don't know how some people do that. And so this is another example where it's like I was trying to be perfect, but it didn't work out, so I'm gonna continue on with the video anyways, even if it's not perfect. So let's go. See, no joke, I literally scripted out this whole thing. All right, let's try this for real. The need to be perfect is easy to understand when we have our heroes growing up that seemed bigger than life. Like, I currently play in the instrumental guitar genre, and in that genre, some of my heroes are the likes of Vinnie Moore, Marty Friedman, Eric Johnston, and these are giants, you know, in the guitar world. Everybody knows them, and they are literally some of the best players to ever live. And that can be quite intimidating. To overcome that, you really have to let it go and just be like, look, I'm gonna be me. And that's okay. There's no sense in stressing over it. I literally stopped to get an Uncrustable. Sometimes you just gotta snack, you know what I'm saying? It also doesn't help that we currently live in a time where technology is being used all the time to heavily edit guitar tracks, and nobody can tell if it's being edited or not. At least a lot of people can't tell if it's being edited or not. Now look, editing guitar tracks has been around since the beginning of time, so I'm exaggerating obviously, but since the beginning of recording guitar, it's probably been around in some sort of fashion. So I'm not against editing guitar tracks or anything. Music is subjective, so who am I to tell you not to edit your guitar tracks or anything of that nature, because it's none of my business, frankly. However, I can see that understandably it becomes questionable when people are posting videos of themselves and pretending like, no, this is really me, dog. This is how I play. And there can be kids, you know, kids, I can see this could affect their mental health because they're growing up being like, why am I not playing like this? I can't play that perfect. In reality, what they're striving for is unrealistic. It's edited, and they don't know that. So I can see that that is a problem, and that could have two things about it, really. It could be good or bad. The good side of that is maybe these kids growing up that see that are striving to play even harder things than we did growing up. So who knows, they might be getting better than us quicker, which is a good thing. Whereas it also could be very detrimental to their mental health because they're like, I'm just never gonna be that good. I can't put anything out because it has tiny little mess ups. It has this little sound and this and that. And it's just like, that's unrealistic, you know? You can't let yourself go down that road because, you know, that's just not healthy for you, and it can be quite stressful, which again, that's the whole point, is that if you're being stuck with perfection paralysis, it could be something that you never release, and then you're robbing the world and yourself of not releasing it. The truth is the stress from trying to be perfect all the time can be quite exhausting, and you could even cause yourself to have burnout. You are being super vulnerable with the entire globe every time you post, and that's weird, okay? Like, that's unfathomable by generations before us. Don't forget that. Like, this isn't normal. Like, we're not used to this, at least not yet. You can post on Tuesday what you had for breakfast and that your cousin's baby daddy didn't show up for court on Friday. That's unheard of, you know? Like, this is something that we're not used to as humans. It doesn't come natural to all of us, at least not yet. And that's okay. Look, imagine a world where a band like the Beatles never released anything because they were worried about how perfect their art was. Most of their albums are riddled with mistakes, if you want to call them that. Most people wouldn't even notice them or even care for that matter. But just recently I was talking to a friend about one of their songs where you can literally hear Paul McCartney punch in to do another take. It's cool, you know, it's like you're capturing a moment in time in history and we get to share that with them like that. I think that's cool. I had a song off my new album called Evergreen that at the very end of it, my drummer Gabe, we were talking in the booth and he was using the talkback to talk to us, and I don't know what we were talking about. For some reason, we caught him at the very end of his take go, yeah, like he was saying something to one of us. And I could have easily cut that out of the song or had him redo the take, but I left it in there, and I left it in the final product. If you go look up Evergreen, at the very end as it's fading out, if you listen closely, he goes, yeah. I just thought it was cool. So I left it in there because like it's a little nugget of history that'll always be there. And so I think stuff like that's cool. It's like a little Easter egg. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't strive to create the best thing within your abilities, but I'm saying sometimes you have to look at a project and just decide, okay, maybe I need to cut my ties. Whatever that means. Either move on from it and come back, that's a really good thing. Move on from it entirely, or just release it. There's things on some of my older albums that looking back, I'm like, man, I wish I could have fixed that. I could do it better now. Maybe I'll re-record an older song or two someday just for the fun of it, some of the bigger ones. But at the end of the day, I think it's better to just leave it as it is and for what it is, and I'll say that for multiple reasons. Now, I did write these down and I don't want to mess them up because I think it's important. Number one, there's people who enjoy these songs already, so why George Lucas myself and keep redoing something people are already enjoying? You know what I mean? Two, it shows where I was at that time in my life and my music career. It leaves a real arc and humanizes what I do. People can clearly see where I started and where I have gotten. I think that's kind of important because if you go way back on my YouTube channel, there's some bad stuff, like straight up not good. But I leave it because it's like, look, that's what I was, you know, and then over time, this is where I'm at. I think that's important. It gives people real expectations of what it takes, if that makes sense. Three, I would get burnt out on my art if I was rehashing the same material forever and ever. It's just not realistic. I would rather see 10 different movies with their imperfections overseeing the same movie remade 10 times because the creator thought, oh, I'm gonna nail it this time. I hope that makes sense. Those are three big reasons why I think it's important to just release the material and step away from it and let it be a marker in history of that's where I was at. Breaking the cycle can be very difficult. It's something that a lot of creative people deal with, and that's why you hear things tossed around like imposter syndrome. It stems from the need to be perfect, and you're being vulnerable, you know, that's tough. It's really tough to be vulnerable and just be yourself because you're always worried someone's gonna lash out. Or you might just have really high expectations for yourself, which is also something that you need to learn to get past. Just be the best you. I know that sounds dumb, but you need to just be the best you. I'm never going to be Marty Friedman. As much as I practice and play his solos, I will never be Marty Friedman because he's Marty Friedman. Why even set myself up for failure by comparing myself? Some things I've done in the past to combat this is to create things like project deadlines. It's a lot easier to finish something if you're like, I have to have it done by this time. And if it's not the best thing in the world, then that's it, you know, and you got to tell yourself that that's it. Get as close as possible and then it's done. That's it. Also, just realizing that my imperfections make my art me and trying to be okay with that. I know that's hard because that's more of an internal struggle and that can be difficult to overcome, but you just got to tell yourself, hey, imperfections are me. That's who I am, and that's okay. For instance, my song More by More They Dream Their Sleep, that song has like a little harmonic in the middle of it. It was an accident. It was a total mess up, but it was in the same key and the delay like made it delay in the same timing of the song, and it just sounded really cool. And so I was like, screw it, I'm gonna leave it in there. I think it's really cool because people would rather hear something authentic and unique than something that's just highly overproduced, no mistakes. Sometimes that kind of stuff really wears on me. Like when I hear a song and it's so overly produced, I'm like, there's literally no soul in it. And I know that sounds like a boomer thing, but it's kind of true. At the end of the day, people just care if it's a good song or not. Did you write a good song? Sweet. It's like, okay, I have a buddy that wrote a song that I really like. Like I really like it and I stream it all the time, and he's always talking about like, oh, I'm gonna redo it and do this. I'm like, dude, just leave it alone. It's a good song. I love the song. Just leave it. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't hear the things you're hearing, so stop being so hard on it because it's a really good song. Oh, I wanted to add this in there because I just thought of it. Adding people to your project, like having friends or something that are collaborating with you on your project, is a huge motivation to actually stick to getting it done because now people are relying on you. I've done that before, and let me tell you, when I do projects that involve other people collaborating with me, I get them done quick. So that's something else you could do. In the grand scheme of things, I think it's okay to remember that there's only one you, as cliche as that may sound. So just try to embrace it. Let that weird sentient creature that you are show itself to the world, because that's honestly what's gonna make the biggest difference, not how overly produced something is just your personality and what you bring to it. That's what people care about. Just try to enjoy the creation process, and at some point let it go, because you don't want to be rehashing the same work over and over and over and over and over and over. Also, on a side note, this book kind of helped me. Two books really, but I'll just really mention the one. There was a book I read recently called The Courage to Be Disliked. Now, I don't agree with everything in this book, but hey, that's the beauty of life. You can pick and choose what you want from things you read or listen to. Let whatever you hear out in the world only occupy so much of your think meat that you want it to. That was a weird way of saying that, but you get what I'm saying. Pick and choose what you want from things in life, and that's the beauty of it. But this book really resonated with me, and I highly recommend it if anyone's interested. It's more about realizing what people think of you is their burden to carry and not yours, which I think a lot of us need to be reminded of from time to time. Alright, so I want to start trying something at the end of my videos where I just kind of bring attention to something cool in the world, and I'm calling it my on the house shout out. It could literally be anything that I think is cool and worthwhile. I'm really excited about this segment because it could just be anything. I find cool stuff all the time. But anyways, there's this really cool coffee shop called Keen Bean. It's a little coffee shop in Mount Vernon, Missouri. We stopped there on our way to Joplin a while back. It was awesome. So if you're ever on I-44 headed through Missouri, headed west, stop at Mount Vernon at Keen Bean and get a coffee. They didn't pay me or anything to say this. We just stopped there and I thought it was cool. So go check it out. All right. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe, or don't. I don't care. Who am I to tell you what to do? Bye. Later.